First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I feel truly blessed. Thank you, Ranjit, for welcoming me to your soul family, because that's exactly what it feels like. And thank you, Gurj. That was such a blessing. Even if that's all I came for, it was so worth it. And I feel the presence of all the ancestral angels, and all of those beautiful souls that walk with us and guide us. So today I'm going to speak about sleep, but before I do that, I just want to quickly tell you a little about myself. I'm a functional nutritionist based in London. I integrate a lot of biochemistry, Ayurveda, with a generous sprinkling of spirituality in all that I do. All my healing protocols are holistic, so I treat the mind, body, and soul as a unit. I use blood works, the traditional blood works, because my background is NHS. But I use the blood tests as a gauge, and eventually my aim is always to get down to the root of what is causing the disorder. And often this leads me to, so that's the agenda for today. So often this will lead me to your gut health, and that's really where it's all at. So that's where all the physical, mental, and emotional disorder really sits. So for me, it's always targeting your gut health, your gut inflammation, and the state of really the gut function. So that's a little bit about me, which I just spoke about. This is not the interesting bit. On the way here, I decided to actually go backward in the way that I wanted to speak. I just want to share quickly. So I lost my elder sister. She committed suicide 3 years ago. And 72 hours ran up to the event. She was severely sleep deprived. So sleep is a topic that's very, very close to my heart. It's something that I'm really passionate about. It's something that I feel is the pivot to your existence, whether it's your emotional well-being, mental, physical, spiritual, your awakening, receiving spirituality, or whatever it is. So sleep is very, very important. And now going back to the gut health. So why is the gut related to your sleep? So for me, irrespective of what condition I'm treating, there's always these are the three things you might really benefit from bearing in mind. What are your meal times like? So are you having wholesome, healthy meals at the same time every day? And is it rinse and repeat? Because your body loves cadence. Our body loves a routine. So if you're eating almost the same meals every day and you're sort of repeating, your body loves that rhythm. It starts to perform in sync with that. So your meal times are very important. Obviously, the content of your meal is really important. So no processed carbohydrates, no over-processed, ultra-processed foods. I favor a high-protein diet anyway. Then the second thing that's important is your emotional balance. And we often overlook that when it comes to traditional medicine. Are your emotions balanced? But what does that really mean? So food is just a fifth of what you have on your plate every day. And that's the easy part. That's very easy to tackle. That's easy. You can eliminate foods, you can include foods, and you can kind of balance that. But the rest of the four parts are really the emotions. What sort of relationships do you share with those around you? Are they healthy? Are you constantly anxious? Is it all very stressful? What kind of media do you consume? What kind of books do you read? What music do you listen to? What frequency are you operating at on a daily level? And that all impacts your emotional balance. And so how does that tie into your gut health? The pivot here is your sleep routine. So are you sleeping at the same time every day and waking up at the same time every day? Do you go to bed at 10 p.m. and do you wake up at 6 a.m.? If you're doing that and you're kind of repeating that pattern every day, what happens in your gut is that your gut bacteria, the good bacteria, will start syncing its multiplication cycle, its reproductive cycle with your sleep routine. Because the darkness, when your eyes are closed, all of that impacts and spikes your melatonin level, which is your sleep hormone. And your gut bacteria sort of triggers and gets stimulated, and it'll start reproducing. So you'll have all of that good bacteria. But if your sleep routine is disrupted and you're kind of going to bed at different times every day and you're not sleeping really well, what happens is that the good bacteria stops to multiply because it doesn't know what to sync with anymore, because there is no routine. You're going to bed at 10 today and then at 2 the next day, and it's all over the place. So the good bacteria, because it's so fragile, starts to deplete, and the harmful bits, the yeast, the candida overgrowth, all of that, which I think you're going to speak about soon, starts to thrive. And this coupled with a very high processed food diet, a high carb diet, which just really feeds into that, And that will start thriving. So you'll have an overgrowth of yeast, candida, all of the bad stuff, and the good bacteria cannot thrive anymore. And once your gut bacteria is depleted or compromised, what happens is that the lining of your gut, the mucosa, gets compromised and it gets inflamed. And coupled with phytates and oxalates and all of the bad stuff in the food that you're eating, it starts to irritate your gut lining, and that can lead to a leaky gut syndrome, which in turn will lead to systemic inflammation, which, because now there's a leaky gut syndrome, your body goes into defense mode, so it starts to attack itself. So that can lead to autoimmune disorders, which, if the chronic inflammation is left unchecked for a long time, can lead to conditions like cancer. So the gut health is the pivot, and this is so closely related. So even if you just think that sleep routine and the rest take a while to sort of fall into place, this is a very hard one to crack, I admit that. The chances are you're generally leading a pretty decent, a pretty healthy life. So now going back to why and the neurotransmitters, why and the sort of biochemistry is so important. My background is biochemistry anyway. I'm doing a PhD as well. So neurotransmitters are just a very sort of easy way for us to understand what's happening in our biology when we're sleeping or we're not sleeping enough. We can start with dopamine. Dopamine is very trendy. Dopamine boosting is very trendy. So what's a very easy way to boost your dopamine? For me, I'd say it's the sunlight that falls on your eyes the first thing in the morning. So if you wake up at 6 or you wake up before sunrise and you're able to just look in the direction of the east. We don't always have sunlight here in the UK, which is sad, but at least symbolically you're looking there, and then the light falls on your eyes, and there's receptors at the back of your eye which stimulate your dopamine receptors in turn, and then dopamine is released. That in turn will start syncing your entire hormonal cycle for the rest of the day. So you want the dopamine spike in the morning, and then you want that to kind of lower quite a bit by the time you're ready to go to bed at night, and you want your serotonin to spike. So one way to achieve that is the sunlight for dopamine in the morning and no blue light at night at all, at least an hour before you go to bed. I always say the 3-2-1 is a very good way to remember that. So no food 3 hours before you go to bed, no liquids 2 hours before you go to bed, and no blue light, no screens, no phones, no laptops, at least an hour before you go to bed, because blue light is dopamine and red light is serotonin. So you can actually use red light therapy or infrared light therapy an hour before you go to bed, because that boosts serotonin, which is a precursor to melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So there's a lot of jargon of words here, but ideally you want high dopamine, because the higher your dopamine levels, the easier your transition is from non-sleep depressed to REM. And you want to be in the REM state as much as possible during the night, because that's where the repair takes place. That's where your body sort of recycles all of the old used up proteins. That's where all your hormones sort of recycle as well. So you want your dopamine to be as high as possible. And another way to achieve that is yoga nidra, so sleep meditation, a good quality sleep meditation, 30 minutes long, every day before you go to bed, at least for a month, will really help boost that dopamine level. There's a lot of studies that show that it can boost your dopamine level up to 60%. So that's quite high. So yoga nidra is important. Then serotonin is the precursor to your sleep hormone, melatonin, and serotonin boosting, again, is very trendy. There's pills that you can get, but I think personally, I don't favor any of the synthetic stuff because there's a lot of side effects. In any case, a lot of the antidepressants are SSRI drugs, which have a lot of side effects because serotonin is a very delicate balance. You need to get it right. Too much boosting can actually disrupt your sleep. It'll kill your libido as well. And it's just all around really terrible for your body. So in order to get that balance right, you'd want to get your serotonin boosted naturally. How best to do it? You want to do the red light therapy, for instance. Even hugging a loved one for 30 seconds boosts your serotonin levels. So it's free. It's that easy. So don't rely on the drugs and all the trendy stuff because it doesn't really work. GABA, again, is a very important neurotransmitter. It's an inhibitory transmitter, so it actually calms down your nervous system. And GABA is in fermented foods. It's in ghee, which is an Indian clarified butter. It's a very good source of natural GABA. And GABA is, again, something that your body naturally boosts during your sleep because it kind of calms down your nervous system. So you can use fermented foods. You can use fermented churned butters. You can use ghee. A teaspoon of ghee before you go to bed is very effective. Thyroid function. So you'll notice maybe some of you do have hypothyroidism, and that disrupts your sleep. So your thyroid is very important when it comes to your sleep cycle. We want to look after the thyroid. If your gut function is compromised, if your gut is inflamed, your T3 levels will be low. That's because your gut is not absorbing enough selenium and zinc. So you want to keep an eye on that. You might want to actually supplement a little bit of selenium and zinc if your thyroid is compromised. Another way to look after your thyroid is pranayama. You can do a bit of Brahmari, the Indian black bee hum, which is very effective. Do it for 15 minutes before you go to bed or first thing in the morning. Very effective. Liver function is important. Do routine liver cleanses if you can. Around the full moon, they are better parasitic cleanses, as you may agree. Gallbladder is important because the bile juice feeds into the liver. And for gallbladder, the best you can do is, especially during an evening meal, you might benefit from having bitter foods like bitter greens, collard greens, the Indian bitter melon, Karela. All of these are really, really good for your gallbladder because it secretes the gallbladder hormone, which almost like a contraction, like the similar contraction you have during childbirth. It contracts the gallbladder and it releases hormone. It completely floods the liver, and that really improves the function of both. So that's very effective. Then I want to sort of quickly speak about Ayurveda and sleep. This is the interesting bit. So according to Ayurveda, a healthy sleeping pattern, according to the traditional books, is anything between 4 hours and 10 hours. So I think 4 hours is a bit on the low side. I'd say anything between 5 and 8 is a really good, healthy sleep pattern. And obviously, most of you are probably aware that there's 3 phenotypes in Ayurveda, and most of us are a combination of the 3. There's the Vata, Kapha, and Pitta. I'm going to tell you the characteristics of all the 3, and then I want you to guess which one you are. So the Vata types. And obviously a lot of the fiction prepared texts are 3, 7 p.m. and 2 a.m. That's why we always say that window is so important. You need to be in that. You must go to bed before 10 p.m. And your physiological or your psychological text is between 2 a.m. and 6. So again, you need to be sleeping. So the Vata type, that's the first type. I'm one of them. So we tend to be very light sleepers. We tend to not have so much trouble falling asleep, but we will sort of wake up around that 2 a.m. mark, but then find it harder to go back to sleep again. The mind is kind of overactive, so psychological repair doesn't really ever happen, and we kind of really suffer from that. But there are tools that we benefit from, things like blackout blinds, eye masks, earplugs, all those things really help all the types, and to have a soft bed and try and keep distractions as minimal as possible. Then the second type is the Pitta types. Now these are the ones that suffer from the worst disrupted sleep. They can be insomniacs. They generally have a systemic inflammation anyway. So they're the ones who suffer from a very inflamed gut anyway, and obviously that ties up to the sleep. They don't sleep very well at all. They find it very hard to fall asleep, and they find it harder to remain asleep. Obviously, insomnia is something we need to think about. They benefit from cool rooms, almost cold rooms, because they overheat really quickly. They are overthinkers. So yoga or sleep meditation really benefits the Pitta types. Then we have the Kapha types, who are heavy sleepers. They don't find it hard to fall asleep at all. They can sleep anywhere, anytime. But they can suffer from conditions like sleep apnea, and they are the ones who get up in the middle of the night to urinate. They find it harder to actually wake up and feel fresh. So they benefit from invigorating spices like ginger tea, cinnamon, clove, things like that. And they overheat us also. They benefit from a very clean room to sleep. So I'm a Vata. I'm actually a combination of a Vata and a Kapha. How many of you think you're the Vata type, this sort of disruptive light sleeper who wakes up at 2?
Good.
Yeah, I can tell. You probably are. Yeah. How many are who find it really, really hard to sleep? Insomniacs.
What?
You are? Oh. You too. And how many are heavy sleepers? Oh, lucky you. You too?
Yeah.
Amazing. So that's an interesting bit, but obviously Ayurveda goes so much deeper when it comes to sleep, your lifestyle. Lifestyle is so important. So the second chapter in Chakra Samhita, which is the ancient Ayurveda book, the entire second chapter, which is a really, really large chapter, is dedicated just to your routine, your daily routine, and your seasonal routine. So that is very, very important. That's why I always say cadence and rinse and repeat routine for the body is so important, because that syncing of the internal and the external is really important. That's why syncing with the seasons for us, because we're just a small part of the bigger nature around us. So that's important. Because I've gone back with the term that, I want to now, I've made up a little certificate and there's a printout with all of this there. So there's lots of things you can do. So there's a lot of help, and I'm a light sleeper myself, so I don't sleep very well all the time myself. And I do rely on a lot of this, and it does work. So personally, I'm a big fan of glycine, water drops, because glycine really boosts your cervical lining, boosts your sleep. So that's a very good one. Tryptophan again, eggs, chicken. They often say that after the Christmas dinner, one feels very sleepy. It's because it's usually turkey, and that's very rich in tryptophan. Medium like white rice meat, which is very trendy over time, it is very good. It really does work, but you need a high dose. So I always start it before I go to bed. Minoxidil, B6 spray, high dose of 900 mg is good, but it's best to consult a professional before you use it self-diagnose. And minoxidil is also something I use for PCOS and insulin resistance. So that is a really good one. If you're on a very low carb diet, like for instance, if you are on any of the GLP-1 injections, or you're trying to lose weight, then you might benefit from a little bit of sweet before you go to bed, because sometimes you get cortisol, your stress hormone spikes. It spikes too early, say at 2 a.m. Because your blood glucose is so low, it'll actually keep you awake. So that's not great for your sleep. So you might benefit from a little bit of sleep, so your blood glucose remains stable during your sleep. Because you don't want to wake up because your blood glucose has plummeted, and you don't know why you're waking up. And that's your stress hormone. So it just only worsens the entire hormone cycle. So that's something important, only if you're on a very low carb diet. Obviously, cold room, really important. Your room should be a cave rather than a sauna. The 3-to-1 rule I spoke about, red light, near infrared, I use it myself, really, really good. Yoga Nidra, there's good quality Yoga Nidra. Don't use any odd Yoga Nidra. Try and find something online that's good, that's proven, that's got a lot of good reviews, and it should be all right. And then obviously lots of breath work. I do a lot of breath work. You can use any. Alternate nasal breathing is also very good for your hormonal rebalancing. So that's a good one. You can use the thyroid one. There's so many you can use. I like to use 4-7-8. So inhale at 4, hold for 7, and exhale at 8. And every time you're doing that, make sure your tongue is on your top palate, on the roof of your mouth, and keep your tongue there, and try and shrink your chest cavity, and try and breathe like that at least for 2 minutes. Because when you shrink your chest cavity, you're actually consciously lowering your heart rate, and that makes you sleepy. The other thing I want to speak about, I have a new wellness app that's just out. It's called Odopia. It's got a lot of sleep aid on it. It's got expert-led sleep meditations. It's got pranayama, also sleep hypnotherapy. So there's a lot of sleep aid on it, stuff that I use and approve of myself. Please feel free to download it. There's a 7-day free trial. And as a big thank you, I am very happy to offer you a free consultation with myself. You're welcome to come to London to see me, or we can do it online. We can speak about your health, we can speak about healing, we can speak about spirituality, we can speak about my moon rituals, or we can just have lunch together. I'd be happy to see. So I thought I'd just offer something. So the first 10 downloads from the attendees here, please feel free to get in touch. In fact, more than 10 is fine. Everyone can get in touch, and I'd love to see you. Please come and see me in London, or we can see each other online. And that you can contact me on my website or Instagram. I think it's all in the printout that Ranjit's kindly printed out for us. I just want to finish by saying thank you so much for having me here. I feel so blessed. I feel like all my angels are here, and I feel like you're my soul family now. Thank you so much.